Hi everyone, I'm Candice Gilligan. This is Candy's Corner. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Monica Almaguer. She teaches us about marriages and how we can be successful. She was going on her clip saying how she wanted to be a better wife that kind of started her channel. And we're going to have a personal story and how it expands from there. Go ahead and take it away, Monica.
Well, hi, Candice. Thank you so much for the invite, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story and basically how I got to where I'm at. As Candice said, I have started a podcast. It's called the Marriage, Money, and Mindset Podcast, and it's only been around now for about 7, 8 months, and it's going really great with just about 20,000 subscribers to date. But I started the podcast because of basically I saw a need in the market and that when I went on through my personal journey of trying to become a wife, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was on YouTube. I was trying to like figure out and level up like how I could be a great wife and therefore have a great marriage because it's always something worthy of striving for. Very difficult to do nowadays. It appears today's modern marriages look very different from those of our parents, and we have unique challenges and obstacles that a lot of people in the past didn't have. So when I went out seeking for this information about how to be a better wife, like specific tools, tips, and tricks, I really came up short. I would go on YouTube, I would go to the library and try to find books, but a lot of this information was missing, kind of outdated, full of fluff. They'd have such things like just be more loving. Well, I don't even know what that looks like. So it left me with really no choice but to kind of develop a my specific area and strategy to make that
Mhm.
happen. I would have to create my own set of rules, my own kind of like codes for how I was going to handle conflict, how I was going to try to avoid conflict. And it just really brought about this high level of intentionality into my marriage. And honestly, was quite humbling to be
Oh, okay.
frank through the whole process, to realize that myself, not only myself, but I think people, marriages, men, women in general, really are not taught specific tips, tools, and tricks for how to navigate marriage. And I don't,
Mhm.
and a lot of people will say, well, marriage isn't worth it. It's not, it's just too difficult. And I still will go be, behind the notion and the idea and sentiment that there's nothing better than marriage, but I would agree that we're definitely not being taught how to navigate marriage effectively.
Mhm. Right.
Are you
Yeah.
noticing that, Candace, too? Like, is that kind of the sentiment? I don't even know. Are you married? Are you married?
No, I'm not married. I'm single, but
Okay.
I'm just ready to find somebody one of these days. I hope true that marriage is well worth having fight for. I really want to have one eventually. But I don't know. It's just I find that what you're saying in today's world is such a different place than what it was back, like you said, in the 50s, like for your clips and stuff. I just like I sat down and I was like, what do I want in a marriage, and what kind of what would I want mine to look like? So it definitely
And
made me
that's,
think about stuff.
I mean, that you're doing more than I think even most people, because what was happening in like the 50s is that everything was very defined for us. When you got married, you knew exactly what that was going to look like. The man is going to go to work. He's going to be the provider. You're going to stay at home. You're going to have children. It was very defined. Well, we now have the situation where the roles are not defined. And so if you are not very specific with in a relationship with delineating who is doing what, you're coming in with a mental mindset of kind of what you want marriage to be and to look like. But your soon to be spouse or your husband or your wife comes in with a whole different idea. And those
Mm-hmm.
discussions are never being had. And I think that's the biggest thing. And then we have these expectations of what we think in our mind marriage is looking like in our mind. And then when the other person doesn't come up and meet those expectations, we get disappointed. You never had the discussion. You never laid out these
Mm-hmm.
clear goals and these delineations of how our marriage is going to look like. So if you do it right, there's nothing like it. But you have
Mm-hmm.
to do that work. And that takes some big communications that are just not being had.
yeah, I'd really like to have, if I ever get into a marriage, I would like to have a discussion like to say, what would you like in this relationship? What would be a perfect marriage to you would be like? Do
Right.
you want to have kids? Do you want to be home? Do you want just different things? You know, what you're saying is totally right. What I want to do, definitely.
hmm I recently had this conversation. I was on X, formerly Twitter, and this gentleman named George Hayworth, and he's a guy that I've done a couple of collaborations with, and he's very much on the same mission aligned with me in that, trying to become better husbands or better wives. So we collaborated on a couple of things, and he did this post about, gentlemen, what's your number one trait to look for in a future wife? And they're all saying a Jesus follower, and I'm like, and everyone's like, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, okay, this sounds good. I mean, of course, you want to be aligned in that, because that means that typically embodies a woman who is the type of woman you're looking for. Like I said, I completely disagree that should be your number one thing you look for, because your vision and where you're going in life has to be more aligned. And for instance, if you are a gentleman who is, say, an attorney, and your goal is to become a partner in a firm, and that's going to require 10 to 12-hour days for 5 to 10 years, that is not going to mesh with somebody whose dream, a woman whose dream is to, live on a farm raising chickens and goats. And that, so it's not, in both of those cases, they can both be followers of Jesus, but their views of where they want their life to go are completely different. So
Mm-hmm.
having a very clear idea of where you want to go, and it's
Mm-hmm.
far more important for a man to be very clear on where he wants to go in his mission in life, because the wife is going to have to come into his world. The woman has to get behind his mission and his goals, because typically the man's going to be the one still, even with women working part-time, full-time, making equal, if not nowadays more than the man. There will come a time in most relationships where she either has to taper down or go part-time and they have kids. So she's going to have to be okay going kind of like into his world. And
Mm-hmm.
so these are the kinds of things that we come into. We want to be strong, independent women, and we
Mm-hmm.
still want that strong man, and because we still want to feel feminine. This is
Right.
the balance that modern marriages are struggling with today. And there's no easy answer, but it really does boil down to being very intentional in every aspect. Men go in and they think that they can let the foot off the pedal. Guys can't do that. They cannot, take the foot off the pedal and the gas and get lazy and complacent, because women will call you out on it, and men think this is a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I think men, in many regards, do have to level up. But ultimately, and this might turn off a lot of the viewers, ultimately, I do think that women on a whole are ridiculous. And we have to be far more humble. And as women, I think the biggest downfall of us women is we have no accountability. We have a hard time accepting accountability. We can be wrong for anything. Guys are much more self-reflective and can take criticism and do something with that. For some reason, us women, we have a hard time with that. And that's my biggest thing that I found when I was looking at myself, was like, it kind of came in with the almost like an arrogance that my shit didn't stink. Sorry, don't need to curse.
No, okay.
My crap, I was always right. My husband, he was being ridiculous, and that his concerns, if I would put it, like I call it my validity filter. If he
Mm-hmm.
came to
Mm-hmm.
me, I would run it through my head and be, is this true? And if I didn't
Right.
think it was true, I could have just dismissed it. So I
Right.
had to kind of like humble myself and realize that if it's concern for him, it means it needs to be a concern for me. And that
Mm.
was that was like the biggest takeaway that I learned from, being very intentional and kind of doing this experiment with my husband. And it made a
Wow.
profound difference in my marriage.
That's amazing. Your self discovery journey going through this whole thing, just trying to figure out what works and what's not working, what you need. to say or do, or what's perfect that we're striving for. That's amazing for your journey. I mean, I applaud you. I really do, because that's it takes a lot of guts to try to like humble ourselves and try to say, hey, that what can I do for you, or what, how can we make this work? How can we do this? How can we do that? That's amazing. Thank you
Right.
for how it's amazing.
Right. And it's funny because as soon as I think I have it figured out, then I'm like, whoa, I'm smacked back with humility again. And so it's pretty funny where many times when like I've got this podcast, I'm trying to teach, and I feel very uniquely qualified because I am a highly logical woman. So most of the time, women are so based on emotion that it's hard to get to that logic side. So I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of like bridge that gap, and the logic of men with the emotionality of women. And you'll hear me speak on my channel to men and be like, you guys need to like realize this about women, because a man can't truly understand how a woman works. But then at the same time, it's I'm able to kind of decipher to women like the logic of men. Um, I will say what I have discovered in this whole process, as far as what the biggest concern for men is, definitely they feel bait and switch, that when they get married, everything is good in the intimacy department, and then they come along. He gives her what he perceives to be everything, this the nice house, the kids, and then all of a sudden the intimacy just goes from like it goes nothing. It dwindles, and so many men are in relationships are living just in complete, there's zero intimacy whatsoever. And it's very difficult for men, because what us ladies don't understand is that that part for men is not just a physical release, but it is an emotional connection. It would be like a man never giving you a hug. It would be like a man never listening to you. It would be like a man never allowing you to speak. Or I mean, it's his way of expressing and connecting with you emotionally. And women don't understand the necessity of that. And if they could, it would revolutionize marriages instead just save a ton of marriages. It's actually what caused me to level up. I went through early menopause. And so I went on hormones. I went on estrogen and testosterone. And when that caused me to be much more like, I initiated more often. And then, so my husband, of course, like, just, this was amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
so because I was initiating, and because our frequency went up so greatly, he started treating me better. And I mean, it just created this feedback of this great loop.
Wow.
And I realized, like, oh my god, this is the key for guys. It really is. And it's so simple. And I definitely get some pushback from women who say they don't have enough time, but it's literally, if you broke it down, I think I did the math on it. We have something like, it's over 10,000 minutes in a week. And if you can't take aside 10, 15, 20 minutes a week for your husband, I don't think you should be married. If you can't
Right.
make, that's, to say you
Yeah.
don't have time is a cop out. Let's just call
Mm-hmm.
it out for what it is. The fact is, you don't care about your husband because it's not important to you. That needs to be addressed.
Right. Exactly. Yes. I would definitely. I'd be like trying to do just anything with them, just like hanging out, just going to movies, just make it special between you, and to just rekindle the love, sort of. Just say, hey, let's take time for us that we get to just go back together and see what we can work on, but just have fun, because that's what marriage is supposed to be. It's having fun for both sides.
Right.
So
Fun
because
is
that's
where
what.
fun is where the attraction lies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I just did a segment called the friend versus lover paradox, and that a lot of times we forget the lover side. Like, we women, we always have like 100, I called it like 100 different tabs open in our brain going
Mm-hmm.
at the same
Yep.
time.
Yep.
One of those tabs is our husband, and that sexual desire, that sex. But all those other tabs are still open. And for a guy, like, that's his primary tab, and then he has a small little other one open that has to do with what's going on right now in the moment that he has to think about. So
Mm.
it's just the priority is much different. And men, I'm trying to help men navigate, like, okay, you got to look at it from this point of view too. But in this friend versus lover paradox, basically I'm making the assertion that it's kind of like a sliding scale, and the more you go into the side of friendship, the less of a lover you become. And
Mm-hmm.
there is a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot, kind of like dead in the middle. But too many women
Mm-hmm.
and many marriages, they get into that best friend and hanging out, being buddies, and yet you want that aspect, but you can't forget the
Mm-hmm.
lover side as well. And that
Right.
doesn't only mean in the bedroom, that means the general sentiment of that side. I think us women, we forget, like, oh, yeah, it's there too. We really
Right,
do.
right.
We forget. And so I do teach men how to bring out more of the lover side, and kind of like how to remove the barriers that at least in our minds are there, because
Mm-hmm.
there are certain levers that he can either turn on or turn off, that can enhance or hinder that.
Wow, that's amazing to learn these. It's been so insightful what you have done and what you have been expressing and told us. That's amazing. I didn't know that much about marriages. Well, I've never had one, but I'm looking forward to having one. But I'm looking forward to having some of these talks too, just to kind of figure out what's best for both of us and see like what we want to do. So thank you so much. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, or thank you for having you for on the show. Again, this is Candy's Corner. And again, this is our special guest, Monica Almaguer. Thank you so much. You have a great day, everyone.
Okay, and we will see you if you guys are interested in subscribing at all. My channel, once again, just you can either search me on YouTube underneath Monica Almaguer, that's spelled Almaguer, or you can look up the podcast name, which is the Marriage, Money, and Mindset Podcast. And yeah, so I definitely subscribe, because no matter if you're married now or ever have the goal of becoming married, definitely I'm have some techniques that and tips and tricks and strategies that I really truly believe, like, my channel and what I strive to do is to have the premier relationship that you could have, that you're probably not having right now. So that's definitely the goal. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone being here and listening, and I hope to see you on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phoenix TV as well. We'll have you there. Make sure everybody subscribe.
Okay, well, very good. All right, take care. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you.